You know how we're always going on about how awesome Capcom's retro Disney games were? How they were some of the best games on the NES, and even a couple on the Super NES? Well, we're not the only ones. Nintendo liked those games too. Back in the early 2000s, they actually published a handheld remake of one of them, which led to this one. It's like 1994 all over again. It's Disney's Magical Quest 2 for the Game Boy Advance. Now, this game was originally released a decade earlier under the name The Great Circus Mystery. Of course, it was actually Disney's Magical Quest 2. And even though they didn't have quite the same magic as Capcom's Disney games on the NES, they were still fantastic games. In fact, the first Magical Quest is one of Mickey's best games. So Nintendo and Capcom, like old lovers trying to rekindle the flame, dusted them off for one more run. Magical Quest, Magical Quest 2, and even Magical Quest 3, which had never been released outside of Japan, were all remade for the Game Boy Advance. As fun and magical as ever. Even if the spell is still kind of short. So obviously, Mickey's been in some great platformers over the years, but these ones are a unique bunch. See, the Magical Quest games are based entirely on suits. Mickey has a bunch of different ones he can wear, and each one gives him new abilities. One suit gives him claws, which lets him climb walls. Another gives him a vacuum cleaner, a la Luigi's Mansion. There are 4 suits in total, and the entire game's designed around them. You can't reach certain areas or beat certain enemies unless you're wearing the right suit. In fact, these games almost have a bit of a Mega Man feel in that regard. It's all about what you're wearing. Mickey Mouse and Dr. Light. Very fashion forward. So once you're dressed properly, what you have here is a really simple 2D platformer, and a pretty good one, even if it is really, really simple. Magical Quest 2 is never very complex, never very challenging, although a couple parts are certainly more challenging than the game's traditionally given credit for. But honestly, who cares? It's a Mickey Mouse game. It should be simple and accessible. And by the way, a game can be simple and accessible and good. I know, crazy, right? So what isn't good about Magical Quest 2? Well, again, it is very short. There are only 6 levels, which has always been the drawback of the Magical Quest games. They're fun, they're designed well, they play great, but they're over before you know it. And I suppose for some people, the difficulty will be an issue too, or the lack thereof. But other than that, there's not much to complain about here. This is a really nice version of a really good Super NES game. Speaking of which, this was a gorgeous Super NES game, and it's as pretty as ever on the Game Boy Advance. Awesome sprite work, fantastic use of color, solid music, and of course you get some of those classic GBA graphics tricks. But that was like a rule. You couldn't make a GBA game unless you rotated the screen at some point. So, and Mickey doesn't argue. There's no reason to flip out. With a game like this, you have to add a twist. Look, if I'm being honest, nostalgia's a big part of this game's appeal. It takes us back to the golden era of Disney games, or at least the final moments of the golden era of Disney games. But we're nostalgic for those days because the games were fun. And even though it might be too simple, and too short, and too easy, this game's still a lot of fun. An awesome platformer for Disney fans of all ages, Capcom's Circus Mystery, still worth checking out in Disney's Magical Quest 2 for the Game Boy Advance. Now, hey Capcom, stop f***ing around and make me some more games, ha!